Yep, they've got the Stormtroopers right. 2019's Jedi Fallen Order was the first AAA single-player Star Wars game since The Force Unleashed. The game was generally well regarded by fans, but there was still room to grow. And so, 4 years later, Cal Kestis is back for a sequel. And in this video, I wanted to explore how Jedi Survivor builds on Jedi Fallen Order, turning a good game into a great game. And yes, before we start, I am aware that some people, in particular those playing the game on PC, are experiencing a lot of issues. I can only go based on my experience on the PlayStation 5, which has been pretty good apart from a few frame drops and a couple of times where Cal forgot to switch off his lightsaber. And just a quick note, I'm going to be saving all the big story spoilers until a section at the end, and I'll give you guys fair warning. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Both these games start with visuals that symbolize the fall of the Old Republic. In Fallen Order, you're seeing a Republic Venator being scrapped. In Jedi Survivor, you're seeing the sunset over the Jedi Temple, now the Imperial Palace. Jedi Survivor continues the visual style established in Fallen Order by having Cal juxtaposed against these grand environments. But this is where the games start to differ. Fallen Order starts with Cal hiding, desperate to avoid capture by the Empire. Jedi Survivor starts with him already captured, and yet there's a confidence in the way he struts through the opening section. In Fallen Order, Cal is eventually discovered by the Inquisitors, and the rest of the first level is him being hunted. On the flip side, the Cal in Jedi Survivor turns out to be the hunter, chasing after this galactic Homer Simpson lookalike. And although they're quite different, both Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor use these situations to weave in a tutorial section. Jedi Survivor also does a good job of retaining most of the abilities Cal learned in the last game, which really goes a long way in making Cal feel like a fully fledged Jedi right from the get-go. Plus, the lightsabers can now dismember human enemies, and whilst it's not quite Jedi Outcast levels, it's nice to see some Stormtrooper arms flying around. I must say, Cal does still run a little like an idiot in this one. Luckily, so do his friends. His powers may have grown, but there are still great obstacles that Cal Kestis can't overcome yet, like a slightly wet floor. After reintroducing the player to all the abilities from the first game, the level then begins to introduce new gameplay features like the buddy system, Jedi mind tricks, and Spider-Manning. And so Cal and his new crew reach the space yacht where Utapau Homer is hiding. They take him in, followed by some light banter.
Hey Cal, if you die, I get the mantis, right?
What a fun bunch of characters. I'm sure they're going to be alive for the entire duration of the— crap, they've been Padma'd. Oh no, it's Bowser's wife, back again. And this time with a phantom pain hand. Now, both these games have a confrontation with an Inquisitor at the end of the first level. And while the fight in the Fallen Order is unwinnable, the fight in Survivor is just a glorified setup for the dual blade mechanic in this game. This is followed by a daring cinematic escape, and then we're back on the Mantis. And not much has changed. The workbench is still present, and thankfully all the lightsaber colors are unlocked. Cal then flies to Kobo, which is by far the biggest planet in this game. Not only will you be returning to Kobo about half a dozen times to explore new zones, a mechanic established in the Fallen Order, but Kobo also acts as this game's central hub. It's filled with a bunch of colorful NPCs like this guy from Daft Punk, this tiny Scottish alien scuba diver,
Scuba the Fisher, am I?
and whatever the hell this is. At this point, you also realize the game really pushes the customizations to the next level. Cal gets a bunch more outfit choices in this one. Now, these aren't just pants, these are commander pants. Plus, he can now change hairstyles, facial hair, and even faceplates on BD1. You can even buy custom soundtracks to play on the jukebox in Grease's diner. Speaking of Grease, he's got an outfit change himself, and he's going for the hairy-chested medallion combo. I must say, I really enjoyed all the little details the devs put into the diner. Oh wow, a space toilet. Which hole am I supposed to use? Nice. Any game with a relax button is a good game in my book. It's my third favorite kind of button after doubt and respect. And so Cal goes to get a hydro spanner from the basement and ends up stumbling on an ancient dungeon, as you do. Luckily not as ancient as the last game. Looks like the devs really realized that Zepho didn't really have a Star Wars vibe and decided to go with the High Republic this time. That's right, remember the High Republic, kids? With all those books and comics? No? Well, for those that don't know, the High Republic is this new Disney-created era set a few hundred years before the prequels. And in a strike of brand synergy, a large portion of this game has Cal exploring old High Republic structures and facilities. He also comes across Z, an ancient droid with the appearance of the Tin Man and the personality of a posh geography teacher.
If you'll excuse me, I've been delayed long enough.
She also kind of walks like our former Prime Minister, Theresa May. I'll elaborate on all these aspects a bit later when we discuss the plot. Now, the developers have also included plenty of content for the prequel fans. Oh cool, droid versus stormtrooper. What? No, don't shoot me, fight each other. But the Separatist presence goes beyond an Easter egg. There is an entire section of this game set inside a downed Trade Federation control ship, almost as a counterpoint to the downed Venator in the Fallen Order. And I've got to say, this baby is brimming with callbacks and Easter eggs. My favorite being the run-in with the droidicas. Damn, there's just something so satisfying about mowing down a squad of battle droids. And Cal has loads of new ways to do it this time as the game introduces a bunch of new stances. We've got the single and double from the first game, and the dual wield introduced at the start. However, as you progress through the game, you acquire the blaster and saber combo, first introduced by Snake and MGS3. Now, mixing a blaster with a lightsaber is a novel approach. Past Star Wars games just let you swap between the two types of weapons. Remember Obi-Wan with a machine gun? And finally, we get the crossguard stance, this game's equivalent of a heavy blade. And of course, each of these styles also has its own skill tree. Just like Fallen Order, a large portion of Jedi Survivor relies on Cal running, jumping, and climbing around elaborate set pieces that would make Nathan Drake proud. But this time around, Cal also borrows some new abilities from other mascots, like the Mario wall jump and the Star Fox dash, that can be layered on top of his already impressive double jump. I look forward to Cal flat out flying in the next game. Oh wait, never mind. Jedi Survivor also expands Cal's force abilities beyond just the combat
Our victory cannot...
and puzzle solving. Cal can now use them for augmentative purposes like mind tricks and taming creatures. Look, he gets his own Yoshi in this one. And he can even do a super jump. I mean, it makes sense. Are you even a AAA game if you don't have some kind of mount? There's also this flying thing, and this giraffe with an eel's head. Yeah, well, I guess they can't all be winners. Jedi Survivor also expands on the Fallen Order with a bunch of side content, like rumor missions, bounty hunter tracking, and you can even grow your own garden. And just like its predecessor, Jedi Survivor has some absolutely gorgeous over-the-top set-piece action sequences. These, together with the expanded combat and faster traversal pace thanks to the grappling hook and dashing, move the game further away from a Souls-like Uncharted hybrid we saw with the Fallen Order and closer towards an all-out action game similar to The Force Unleashed. But don't get me wrong, the Souls-like combat is still very much there and there are plenty of exploration and puzzle sections. Fortunately, they're a bit more varied than the move the ball here puzzles we got in Fallen Order, but just like the first time around, they still kind of feel like they're there to pad out the game between the fun parts. Thankfully, the developers also added a fast travel feature to Jedi Survivor so you can go straight back to the ship instead of backtracking. In my video on the Fallen Order, I mentioned how many developers stuff modern AAA games with a bit of everything to offset the long and expensive development cycle and appeal to as many types of customers as possible. And Jedi Survivor pushes even further into this territory. The only thing this game is missing is Cal going to a casino to spin the roulette for a chance to win a Bugatti, which I'm sure is coming in the next installment. Before we continue, just a quick note to say that I have started a Patreon. It's only £1 a month, so if you've enjoyed my content, please consider subscribing, as it would go a long way in helping me release videos consistently. Thank you for considering. Alright, time to talk properly about this game's story, so skip to this part if you want to avoid spoilers. Now, Fallen Order's main story suffered from the same issues as The Force Unleashed or any of the other prequels. It was boxed in by the original trilogy. We knew from the get-go that Cal's search for the holocron to help him rebuild the Jedi Order would have to fail, so the devs focused more on the characters and the journey. So I was very curious to see where Respawn would take Jedi Survivor's plot given the many narrative dead ends presented in front of them. How can they create stakes and have any type of realistic impact on the canon when we already know how things end? Well, Jedi Survivor picks up 5 years after the events of the first game. Cal is part of the Resistance fighting the Empire along with this big fella, Bo Dakuna. He seems like such a nice guy, I'm sure he's not a traitor or a spy or anything. Now, Cal is quite disheartened that, despite his efforts, the Empire just continues to become more and more powerful. At this point, I figured the story would revolve around Cal trying to build the rebellion to strike at the Empire. You know, something similar to what we got in Star Wars Rebels. Well, I was wrong. Cal accidentally discovers that a High Republic Jedi named Dagan Gera was working on a way to reach a mythical planet Tanalorr hidden behind the supposedly impenetrable Koba Abyss Nebula. Cal finds Dagan, still alive in a Bacta tank, and tries to recruit him. But Mr. Pale here is very salty at the Jedi Order for abandoning his project and decides to turn to the dark side. What follows is a race between Cal and Dagan to see who can figure out a way to reach the planet Tanalorr first, as it would be a safe haven from the Empire. Dagan intends to use it to build up his forces and strike at the Empire, while Cal and the newly aerodynamic Siri want to use it to rebuild the Jedi Order away from the threat of the Empire. And suddenly the entire Cal versus the Empire story takes a back seat. Instead, Cal and his friends go from one High Republic era location to another, fighting these Bedlam Raiders who reprogrammed an older army of battle droids. And at this point, I thought that I'd sussed out the game's plot. The developers realized there wasn't really much they could do in the time frame given the canonical limitations, and so they effectively sent Cal on a big side quest to fight a self-contained villain from the past that would have no impact on the grand canon. And then Cal killed Dagan and I realized there was still a third of the game left. And this is where the plot made a pleasantly surprising pivot. Remember Bode? This super trustworthy, nice guy? Yeah, he's a traitor. But he's not just some generic bad guy. Turns out he was also a former Jedi, but unlike Cal, he became an Imperial spy in exchange for the safety of his daughter. And he's been using both Cal and the Empire to try and find a way to Tanalorr so he could hide there with his daughter in peace. Bode kills Cordova, who turns out was actually still alive, and reveals the Jedi secret sanctuary location to the Empire, which results in Vader turning up and killing Siri. Now, the last third of the game turns into a chase between Cal and Bode and brings the Empire back to the forefront. Cal breaks into an ISB facility, which to me is on par with the Fortress Inquisitorius from the first game. Excuse me, can you tell me how to... Whoops. Ooh, this will take a while. Wait, what's this? Press R3 and L3 to have Cal embrace his darkness. Alright. Oh, jeez. Oh, shit. Ooh. Ooh. At this point, the game starts getting pretty dark. Not only does Cal start to seriously flirt with the dark side, him and Bode both end up reaching Tanalorr where they duel to the death and Cal kills Bode in front of his daughter. And this is where Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor contrast in their endings. In Fallen Order, Cal doesn't actually achieve his goal of rebuilding the Jedi Order. However, it's still a happy ending because along the way he found family and hope in the time of darkness. Now, Jedi Survivor ends with Cal actually achieving his goal. He reaches Tanalorr and can now use it as a sanctuary from the Empire. However, it comes at a great cost. His family has been broken and his hope is being consumed by darkness. The two endings are a direct inverse of one another. And in true Star Wars tradition, the second chapter of this hero's journey ends on a down note. Overall, I think Respawn did a really good job weaving this game's plot, given the canonical constraints they had to work with. The game tries some new things while always anchoring the narrative back to what made the first game work, the characters and their relationships. The bait and switch in villains is also a nice touch, juxtaposing the relatively one-dimensional bad guy like Dagan against Bode and his unrelenting pursuit pursuit to keep his daughter safe, which really gives weight to his character, even if you could see his betrayal from a mile away. And speaking of villains, I couldn't finish this video without talking about Darth Vader. Now, the original confrontation with Vader in Jedi Fallen Order has become one of those iconic video game moments, and the developers must have realized that they couldn't replicate that in this game. And so, this time around, Vader is pretty much just a straight-up boss. And yes, turning him into a real boss instead of an escape sequence does diminish Vader a little, especially after having a flaming bookshelf thrown at him, but I think he still serves an important purpose in the story. Let's be honest, Ciri's death would have had a lot less impact if she was killed by some random baton trooper instead of the Dark Lord. Plus, it sets up a rematch with Cal in the third game. And I think the third game will be used to tie up some of the narrative loose ends established by Jedi Survivor. As interesting as this game's story is, it's still kind of brushing up against the original trilogy. Yes, Cal found Tanalorr and plans to train Jedi there, but we all know that can't really happen. And the third game will probably see the Empire find a way to reach the planet and once again destroy everything Cal built. Of course, the big question is if Cal and his friends will survive this trilogy, because there are quite a few Jedi running around the galaxy at this point. And so there we have it, Jedi Survivor. And early launch performance issues aside, I think this is a textbook example of how to make a good sequel. Survivor builds on every aspect of its predecessor. More lightsabers, more force powers, new abilities, bigger worlds, a broader story, a bunch of quality of life improvements, and fishing. All of that makes Jedi Survivor one of the best Star Wars games I've ever played. But that's just my take. Please let me know what you think of this game in the comments. How do you think it compares to Jedi Fallen Order? And where would you rank it amongst all the other Star Wars games? As always, thanks for watching. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, and a big thanks to all of my existing patrons. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.